This is video 5.4. Section 5.4, we're going to talk about the product to sum and sum to product formulas. We're going to start with product to sum first. Now you can see these formulas are listed here, and we use them when we want to find the product of two trig functions. For example, sine times sine, cosine times cosine, sine times cosine, or cosine times sine. So depending on how we're multiplying, you'll see that the formulas are a little bit different. You'll also notice it's when we're multiplying two different trig functions, an alpha and a beta, so two different angles. So let's go ahead first and look at some examples just to help us use these formulas. So example 1, express each of the following products as a sum or a difference. So basically just rewrite this using the formula. Now I'm going to start by looking what I have. Right now I have sine of 2x. 2x is like an alpha. Cosine 3x. It's a different angle, so we'll call it beta. So I have sine of alpha times cosine of beta. So I'm going to go down my list and look and see that that matches with the third formula, sine of alpha, cosine of beta. Let's just plug in our alphas and betas. So we're going to have 1/2 times the sine of alpha, 2x, plus beta, 3x, plus the sine of alpha, 2x, minus beta, 3x. If I do a little bit of work inside those parentheses, I get 1/2 times the sine of 5x when I add, plus the sine of negative x. Now, I don't know what x is. I don't know what angle we're talking about here, so that's as far as I can go. I can't answer this question. Again, I'm just trying to express it as a sum. You could also, if you wanted to, distribute the 1/2. So now you can see that my product is now written as a sum instead. I took two things that were being multiplied and I changed them to two things being added. Let's go ahead and do that same thing for part B. I have the same alpha and beta, only now it's sine and sine. So I'm going to now use the top formula. Go ahead and pause your video and try to plug in your alpha and your beta into that formula. I hope that you wrote 1/2 times the cosine of 3x minus 2x minus the cosine of 3x plus 2x. Again, we can do a little bit of simplifying here into cosine of x minus the cosine of 5x. And the last thing you could do is distribute that 1/2 if you wanted to. And you'll notice that my product is now written as a difference, as a subtraction problem. I took two things being multiplied and I rewrote it as two things being subtracted. So again, we're using these formulas when we have two trig functions being multiplied together. In these examples, we were just practicing using the formulas. Now, let's actually use the formulas to find an exact value. The first thing we need to do is match up our formula here. Let's look. We have cosine of 15. 15 will be like our alpha, times the cosine of 45, which is like our beta. The hint we need a formula here is because we can't find the cosine of 15 degrees on our unit circle. So we're going to use one of these formulas instead. The cosine formula is the second one down. So let's plug in what we know. We're going to have 1/2 times the cosine of alpha, 15, minus beta, 45, plus the cosine of alpha plus beta, Just like we did before, let's add inside our parentheses here. We end up with the cosine of negative 30 degrees. The nice thing here is that that's on my unit circle now, so we're in a good position. Plus the cosine of 60 degrees. And again, that one's also on my unit circle. This time, instead of distributing the 1/2, remember we're trying to find the exact value. Let's find those values. The cosine of negative 30 degrees, if I go 30 degrees in quadrant 4, I end up with root 3 over 2 when I find the cosine, the x value, at negative 30 degrees. The cosine of 60 degrees is 1/2. And again, I'm going to have 1/2 times all that. The nice thing right now is I have common denominators already inside my brackets here, root 3 plus 1. Remember, brackets are just like big parentheses. So we have root 3 plus 1 over 2 times 1/2. And now we're just multiplying two fractions. When I multiply across the top, I get root 3 plus 1. And when I multiply across the bottom, we get 4. So the final answer is root 3 plus 1 all over 4. All right, now we're going to do the same thing, only we're going to go the other way. We're going to take a sum and write it as a product. So now we're going the sum to product. So notice now, again, two different angles. We're taking sine of an angle plus sine of a different angle. Or cosine of an angle minus cosine of a different angle. Notice we're starting with a sum or a difference. Two trig functions being added or subtracted. And that's when we know to use these formulas. Let's once again start by just practicing plugging things into the formulas before we actually calculate anything. So the first thing we're going to do is just practice using the formula. So here's the first one. Express this sum or difference as a product. We have sine 2x plus sine 3x. We need to match that up with a formula. It's sine plus sine. So we're at the top here, where 2x is our alpha and 3x is our beta. So if I plug those in, I'm going to get sine 2 times the sine of alpha plus beta, 2x plus 3x divided by 2, times the cosine of alpha minus beta divided by 2. Only a little bit here I can simplify. 2x plus 3x is 5x, so we'll just leave it like that, and negative x over 2. Now again, there's nothing to answer here, there's nothing to solve, there's no exact value to find because I don't know my angle, I don't know how much x is. Part B, we have cosine minus cosine. So now for part B, it looks like we're using the bottom formula. So we'll go ahead and plug in our alpha and beta. And you might want to pause your video and try this first on your own. You should get negative 2 times the sine of alpha plus beta, 4x plus 2x over 2, times the sine of alpha minus beta over 2. We'll simplify a little bit here. Negative 2 times the sine of 6x over 2 and 2x over 2. And this one actually reduces a little bit further. Our fractions turn into 3x and x. So there's our final answer. Let's look at one last example on how we actually use these. So express the following as a product if possible and find the exact value. Now normally I could just find the cosine of each of those angles and add the answers together, but the problem is that 75 and 15 are not on my unit circle, so that's a hint I'm going to have to use a formula. We've got cosine alpha plus cosine beta, so it looks like we're on the third formula here. Let's go ahead and plug in what we know. We're going to have 2 times the cosine of alpha, 75 degrees, plus beta, divided by 2, times the cosine of alpha minus beta, divided by 2. Let's go ahead and add those together, and we end up with 90 divided by 2 and 60 divided by 2. 90 divided by 2 is 45, and that's good news for us because 45 is on our unit circle, along with 30 degrees. We can find the cosine of 45, that's root 2 over 2. The cosine of 30, root 3 over 2. And we have 2 times that, remember that's like 2 over 1. If I multiply across all the tops, I end up with 2 root 6. When I multiply across all the bottoms, that's over 4. And 2 goes into 4 2 times. So actually we end up with root 6 over 2 as our final reduced answer for the exact value. That's where we'll end the video for today.